Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hello Redlow podcast. I'm your host, Terry Mullen, and I'm so happy you're here. If you're new here, welcome. Redlow is older spelled backwards. I'm older, and perhaps you are too. Or perhaps you're just a little bit curious about who I am and what I have to say. I show up here each week talking about all things like navigating life transitions, overcoming hard things, and rediscovering who we are now in this season of life. I do solo episodes, and I bring on a few of my friends, other amazing women who are stepping forward with their lives, starting businesses, and overcoming their own hard things. We all have a story to tell, so sit back and listen in. Hey friend, have you ever had a really great idea, a really fantastic idea? Or maybe a burning desire to step forward and make some changes or try something new. And then, bam, you get hit by this wave of overwhelm and doubt and frustration and confusion, right? Suddenly, that really fabulous new idea or project feels like a mountain you have to climb. It's heavy, it's weighted. Each step you take feels like you're walking in mud, right? And your brain is scrambled and your emotions have a huge foothold on you. Well, this, my friend, is completely normal. Stepping outside your comfort zone is challenging. And guess what? I am now in this place, right? We're never immune to it. Each time we grow and stretch, we find ourselves experiencing growth pains. So, little background. Hello Redlow is going through her own little midlife transition. She is pivoting and getting a makeover. So don't freak out. Hello Redlow will remain my brand and my business name. But the podcast is getting a new name to reflect Step Forward. So what does this look like? Well, first of all, it's really hard. It's really uncomfortable. It's stretching me in so many ways, but it's good because we all get to this place, right? We grow, we get to a place where we kind of plateau, and then we need to level up and get to the new level. And it's not comfortable. Growing pains are hard. Recently, I took a boot camp because I was really feeling like I needed to move kind of to this next level. And I took a boot camp from a woman named Stephanie Gass. She's a boss in the podcast space. If you're not familiar with her, she has a podcast called Online Business for Christian Women. She does 7 figures, and she's amazing. She's lots of fun, has great energy, and she's just brilliant in this space. So I found myself in the hot seat and really was challenged to face where I am and do kind of an audit on the podcast. What are my goals? Is it searchable? What is my message? All these things that we really have to talk about. And, for so long when I started my podcast, I just started it really kind of as a passion project. I had taken a course, my very first course when I was diving into the personal growth and development space. And I knew I wanted to write a book. That was something I really had set a goal on to do, and I did. And for those of you that aren't familiar, my book name is Step Forward. So it's kind of where we're headed with all this. But then we were also challenged to record an intro for a podcast. And I did it. I sat in my car for hours recording over and over and over this little 2-minute intro. And when I was done, I realized, wow, this is really fun. I love this. I like the sound of my voice. I don't hate it. I love sitting behind this microphone and kind of sharing my thoughts. And so that kind of led to launching my podcast. And it's been so much fun. It's still a huge passion of mine. And as I've shared many times with all of you. So when I started, I didn't even tell anyone I was doing it. And I share in one of my previous episodes that one of my very, very best friends didn't even know I had a podcast. And one day I received this text from her that said, "Hello, Redlow." So I knew at that point she found out. And I said, "Oh my gosh, how did you know about Hello, Redlow?" And it's kind of a whole long funny story, but it really tells a story about me feeling so small that I was a little bit embarrassed. Didn't want anyone to really know I was doing it. Just kind of, putting my toe in the water to see how this felt. And so now here I am 3 years later, and I've hit this place where I really need to move forward and really pay attention to more like the business side and the data and all these things that are not always fun and fancy or sexy, but they're important. And so that's where I am. And it's really normal for people to go through a rebrand. And I've learned that Stephanie Gass has gone through 4 of them. So all really, really necessary and normal. But it doesn't come without pain and struggle, right? It feels uncomfortable. It's awkward. I'm frustrated. I feel so uncertain. And truly, one of the hardest things to do is to take all these swirling thoughts and narrow it down to just a few simple words. And I think Mark Twain said it best. If I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. Similarly, if I had more time, I would have said less. And I'm learning, as Stephanie Gass says, that confusion comes before clarity, and there'll be a whole lot of frustration before the fruit. So that's where I am. I feel like I'm on the vine being pruned. And my desk is a mess. It's actually a hot mess. I have papers everywhere. I actually might just even post a picture of it. It's just a train wreck. So anyway, any of you feel this way? I hope so, because if you do, it means you're growing and you're stretching yourself and you're challenging yourself and you're being open to new ideas. And that's a really great place to be. I used to tell my kids when we were learning how to ski that if you're falling, that means you're really trying and learning something new, right? It's kind of the same thing. I've been skiing since I was such a young girl, and I just kind of cruise. I play it safe, especially the older I get. But if you're really challenging yourself, you're going to fall and make mistakes. Same kind of thing. And I kind of feel like I'm sliding down the ski hill at the moment. Anyway, what do you do when you feel overwhelmed? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we get clear. We actually have to set boundaries so that we can really conquer that mountain, right? And not crumble beneath it or not give into it, right? We've got to keep going and putting one foot in front of the other and keep stepping forward. Often we feel really overwhelmed because we're stepping into the unknown. Makes me think of Frozen. But when we embark on something new, there's definitely going to be a ton of certainty. It's just normal. And our brain doesn't like uncertainty. It wants to protect us and keep us safe, right? So it will kind of shut down. And when we get really overwhelmed, often we can't think straight. So it really blocks our creative pathways. The second thing when we feel overwhelmed is a lot of times it's because we're trying to be perfect. That perfectionism, for all of those recovering perfectionists out there like me, it will really rise up. And that pressure to get it done, to get it right, can really cause us to be paralyzed and keep us stuck. But progress is not perfection. And we just have to move forward. We have to take that risk, dive into it, and be done with it, right? The third thing that happens when we feel overwhelmed is sometimes we just lack boundaries. And when we're in this middle of trying to move forward, trying to do something different, we have to really kind of put our blinders on and block out all the distractions, different people that might even be asking something from you, and block your time. The word no has to become your best friend, because when we say yes to everything, we leave no room for the focused energy and action that needs to take place in order for us to move forward. And that's saying no to people we love, to great opportunities. It can be the right idea or the right person, but it's just the wrong time. And it's okay to say no. I have really learned this the hard way, and it took me a good 2/3 of my life before I really felt comfortable saying no. In my book, I actually share a story of how I had to learn to say no. I say that setting boundaries is a positive, healthy necessity in one's life, which will empower and raise confidence in oneself. And that's a quote from Unknown. But the truth is, for most of my life, I had a really hard time saying no. I said yes far more times than I could even count, and I made far more commitments than I could possibly fulfill. It caused me so much internal anxiety. Yes flew out of my mouth without ever even looking at my calendar most times, and sometimes I knew I couldn't do it, but I said yes anyway. I didn't want to hurt someone's feelings. I didn't want to disappoint them. I didn't want to let them down. Yes, I was a people pleaser, and I wanted to be the good girl and the good friend and the good sister and the good wife, right? But one day my mother-in-law, who was a master at no, just about had it with me. So she made me write myself a Post-it note, actually several Post-it notes. And on that Post-it note was the word no in big, black, bold letters. And she had me place this Post-it note by each phone. Remember, back in the day, we didn't have cell phones. But it was hard for me. It was hard for me to say no. And my automatic response back then was yes. And I had to learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable and say no without explanation. It took me a long time to realize that no isn't unkind. It's actually an expression of love. Because if you say yes to all these different things and sacrifice yourself, you will not achieve the goals that you have for yourself. And eventually you end up getting resentful and angry. So be mindful of that. And if you struggle with saying no, you can say it with kindness. You can tell someone, I'm really sorry. Can I think about that? I need to look at my calendar, or I need a few days to think about that. Could I get back to you on Monday? Or could I get back to you tomorrow? But make sure you pause and remember those words in your mind. Rehearse them. You can also say things like, thank you so much, but that just won't work for me right now. All perfectly acceptable. I'm never offended if someone says that to me. So why isn't it okay for us to say it to someone else? So just a little bit of a tangent, but it's so important to learn to say no and set boundaries to protect your space and your time and your energy, especially when you're trying to step forward into something new. So put on those blinders when you start to feel like your life is swirling out of control a little bit, or you're stepping into something new. Just peel back. Start saying no to things around you. I've had to say no to 4 things this week. Great opportunities, great people, just not the right time. I'm really focused on something that I'm trying to move forward with, and I'm really okay with it. So I hope that encourages you. So back to feeling overwhelmed when we're starting something new. It's all normal, right? Fear and doubt is very natural. When we are stepping outside of our normal routine, our normal comfort zone, all that stuff rises up. The key is really having an awareness and acknowledging it. It's also really normal to feel overwhelmed. That's why I'm saying you got to really tighten your boundaries so that you keep things really simple, a really simple routine. You do time blocks. You put your phone in a different place so it's not right near you. You stop scrolling through social media. Go to bed at a certain time every night. In fact, I've actually stopped looking at my phone at a certain time every night. I go put it away, and it has changed my sleep patterns exponentially. So I encourage you to do that. And then finally, the other thing, it's just really normal to have that imposter syndrome, all those thoughts about who are you, you're not qualified, this isn't right, who's going to listen. All those things are super, super normal. But the secret is really having some strategies in place that will help you overcome those growing pains and that feeling of overwhelm. And the first thing to do really is just to acknowledge that you're feeling that way. Don't ignore it. Don't shove it away. Just, I'm feeling overwhelmed. And own it, validate it, and then move on. And the way you do that is by paying attention to that feeling. I say it's like a siren going off in your body that's like, hello, pay attention, things aren't right. You're kind of at the edge, you're feeling all this anxiety, your mind is spinning, you're stressed, you're maybe not sleeping as well. That's your warning signal that it's time to step back and really tighten up your boundaries. And the first thing you can do is really just cut out the fluff in your life, the things that you can get rid of. That's the first thing, easy. What do you need to say no to? And then break it down into small chunks, more manageable steps, and then celebrate the wins that you make each day. Make a list of 3 things that you need to get done that day and cross it off. There's such satisfaction in that. The third thing you can do is just embrace imperfection. This is still a struggle for me at times, and so I have to really step back and focus on the progress I've made, not just getting it all perfectly right. Mistakes are just opportunities to grow and learn. And when you're in this space, this online business space, and you're trying things, you're putting ideas out there, the data reflects what works. It's trial and error, and there's no secret way around it. You just have to do it. But if we don't put ourselves out there and try to get that feedback, we're going to stay stuck. Number 4, seek support. Connect with a mentor, take a course, join a community, or find an accountability partner to really help you move the needle forward. And as you're learning here, all coaches need coaches. We all grow and learn and move to that next level. And if you're in that place, I would love to help you. I do one-on-one coaching and help you move to your next level. The 5th strategy to implement when you're experiencing these growing pains is to focus on your why. Remind yourself of the bigger goal. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you trying to move forward? Because that will help you and motivate you to keep going and keep moving forward towards the bigger picture. It's kind of like training for a marathon or a half marathon, which I have done. You train all those weeks and months leading up to that big race. Your goal is to finish and get to that finish line, right? For me, that was that half marathon. And you focus on 1 mile at a time. Because if you focus on that 13.1 miles or the 26.2 miles that you're going to run, it can feel overwhelming. You know you've got to get to the finish line. But in the process, while you're running, you focus on 1 mile at a time, and you celebrate each mile that you hit, each mile marker, right? It's the same for us when we're setting new goals for ourselves. We have to break it down into smaller, measurable, achievable steps so that we can reach the finish line and achieve our goal. So keep stepping forward, my friends. If you're in this place, I celebrate you. I hope you are, because it really means that you're growing and stretching and trying to learn something new and trying to figure out what's next for yourself. And when you do, it's super normal to have discomfort. And growth involves a lot of discomfort. It's okay. We just have to embrace it as a sign of progress. Celebrate every step, every milestone you make, whether big or small, celebrate it. And then focus on what you're learning, because it's another tool in your toolkit, not only to help yourself, but those around you as well, and maybe those that you're leading and guiding as well. And I say stepping forward and stepping into something new is a courageous act. It takes courage. It really does. And each step you make, each courageous step you take, leads to confidence. And you can turn your growing pains into stepping stones that will help you achieve your goal. So if you need help getting to that finish line, to reach your goal, or to figure out what's next, I would love to help you. I will put my contact information in the show notes. And if you're a little bit further along, you're a coach or an entrepreneur, and you need help speaking with confidence, I would love to help you do that. Whether you're speaking on video, you're teaching a class, or you are behind a microphone, I'd love to help you. I do a 6-week live Zoom class where we meet once a week for an hour and a half. We start right where you are and talk about mindset with confidence, then the power of you, how important it is just to show up and be authentically you. We all have our own gifts and talents and need to bring that to our camera, to our teaching, to our podcast if you decide you'd like to start a podcast. We also talk about equipment essentials, what I use when I'm recording. And then I talk about the art of storytelling, how to tell a story, whether you're speaking it or writing it. And then also we dive into crafting your content and really optimizing search engine optimization. So stuff we have to know, not all sexy and fun, but we need to know all that. And I do an episode on starting a podcast. That's kind of the bonus section. So I will link all that here in the show notes. I'd love to help you step forward with confidence to find your voice and speak so that you feel seen and heard and loved and valued and know that you belong. Keep stepping forward, one step at a time. Until we meet again, God bless.